So good morning, everyone. My name is Siobhan Steuben, and I proudly serve as the president of the Texas NAACP Youth and College Division. We have so much in store for you today. So before we dive in, I just want to go over a couple of housekeeping items. So today's sessions, we'll be meeting with a lot of people today. We have a mix of webinars and meetings. So please note that each of those links that you received are different. So you want to make sure you click on the session that you are trying to attend. We will be using the Q&A feature. So this specific meeting is a webinar. So if you have any questions or you have comments, put your comments in the chat, put your questions in the Q&A. And most importantly, we want you to have fun. We want you to learn something new. We want you to meet someone new. So now I hope y'all are fired up and ready to work. And if you're not, that's okay, because our second vice president, Nick, is going to change that really shortly. So let me go ahead and give Nick the floor.
Good morning, everybody. How are you all doing? So what we'll be doing today is starting off with our beloved NAACP chant. Just to give you guys a quick instruction, if you aren't familiar with it already, what we do is we spell out the NAACP, and then at the end, we'll do a brief call and response. I know it's not Sunday yet, but we still want to get you guys in that spirit. So I'm going to go ahead and start it off, if that's cool with y'all. Give me an N. N, you got your N, you got your N. Give me an A. A, you got your A, you got your A. Give me another A. A, you got your A, you got your A. What about that C? C, you got your C. What about that C? What about that P? P, you got your, what does that spell? A, NAACP. Woo, woo. We want to fight if we gonna be free. Woo, woo. We gonna give it all we got. Woo, woo. We gonna show them what we all about. Fired up. Give me that fired up back. Fired up.
Fired up.
Ready to work.
Ready to work.
Ready to work.
Ready to work.
Ready to work. Ready to work.
Ready to work.
Come on. Thank you, guys. So wanted to get you guys piped up real quick, but we also wanted to provide you guys with a tool that we found is going to come in handy for you guys throughout the entirety of this convention as you meet new people from across the state. What we wanted to introduce you guys, since we're in a virtual sense, is to an app that allows you to create virtual business cards that you could share across different platforms. So the name of that app, if you have your phone on standby, or if you are on a computer, you could still download it then. It's called Hi Hello. And if you check in the chat that has the panelists and the guest, you have the link to both the Google version and the Apple version if you don't have, depending on what device you use. So be sure to download that. Be sure to drop the link. If you ever find yourself in a session with somebody that you want to connect with, if it's a panelist that you want to connect with, be sure to use that, put it to good work. And we hope that you enjoy the 84th State Convention. I'll now be passing it off to Siobhan.
Thank you, sir. So hopefully, you get those business cards together. So when you meet people, you tell them, hey, connect with me, and you send them your virtual business card. So it's a little easier. You don't have to type all that information out. You type it in once and you get it over with. So I hope y'all are fired up and ready to work. So without further ado, if not, too bad. We do have a special guest for you this morning, gracing us with his presence. I'm really excited for this. This is my big brother, our newly official National Director, Wisdom Cole, and I'm sure you all already know who he is, but I will go ahead and tell you a little bit more about him just in case. So Wisdom Cole is the National Director of the NAACP Youth and College Division. In this role, he serves more than 700 youth councils, high school chapters, and college chapters. So, y'all on this call, and actively is fighting for our civil rights. Wisdom brings extensive experience in civil rights advocacy, training institute, electoral action trainings, grassroots organizing, issue toolkits and webinars at the local, state, and national level. Woo, that's a mouthful. But Wisdom does a lot, and he has managed national campaign efforts focused on building Black political power through youth leadership development, advocacy, indirect action, organizing. Wisdom was previously a field and state conference organizer with the African Black Coalition, the largest Black collegiate organization in California, shout out California. In his time at the NAACP, he has worked on campaigns around the cancellation of student debt, removing police from schools, as well as increasing voter access for young Black people. He has been featured on NPR, Vice, NBC Washington News, Brookings Institute, and The Economist as an advocate for Black youth voter turnout through issue-based campaign organizing. So Wisdom a little famous, y'all. In 2020, he was named one of Complex Life's 32 young activists who are changing the world, and he is indeed doing that. So I'm gonna go ahead and pass it to Wisdom because I know what he has to say will be a lot more helpful than what I have to say.
Everything you have to say, Siobhan, is very helpful. But good morning, everybody. It is great to be here with you all for the Texas Youth and College State Convention. I just want to say good morning to you all. I know that a lot of you are here this morning. I know we're meeting virtually. I'm just looking at who is in the attendee. Good morning, Alexis. Good morning, Angel. Good morning, Chance. Good morning, Ellie, Ife, Kaya, Landon, Marissa. I know Marissa from last year. Good morning, Noah. Good morning, Zoe. Good morning to you all for being here this morning and getting up to become freedom fighters. It's very, very important that in this moment in time, I know for over a year and a half now, we have been doing and living in this virtual reality. And sometimes, especially when we have to consistently meet in this fashion, in this nature, it becomes difficult and we get tired. And so I want to applaud each and every one of you for continuing to be here, continuing to engage, continuing to want to learn new skills necessary to fight forward for the future of freedom. When I was asked to come this morning and share some remarks with you all, I really began thinking about the idea of what does it mean to fight forward for the Youth and College Division. As Siobhan said, I've been with the organization for a little over 3 years, and in my journey within the NAACP, there has been so much that has happened within the organization, but particularly within the Youth and College Division. When I started at the NAACP, I started as the national organizing manager. And the request that I was getting was, our young people need training. Our young people need to understand the ins and outs of organizing for a better future through democracy, through issue-based campaigns. And I was like, okay, bet, let's do this. Let's make sure we train every Youth and College Division member in the various skills necessary to be successful as a freedom fighter within this organization. And as you know, with any 112-year organization, there is going to be some veers and trips and different things that happen across the way that may be seen as barriers, right? We experience so much because we are part of an organization that has a very deep legacy rooted in civil rights, rooted in long-term advocacy. And when I talk about long-term advocacy, let me tell you what that means for me. You may have heard the old adage, if you give a person a fish to eat for a day, teach them how to fish to eat for a lifetime, right? The NAACP is in the business of teaching people how to fish for a lifetime. How do we ensure and push for advocacy issues? How do we make sure that we are keeping elected officials accountable 365 days of the year? How are we upholding the different fundamental institutions of this world? Let me tell you what I'm talking about, right? I'm talking about the voter registration process, which we just had National Voter Registration Day a couple days ago. We're talking about the election process. People come in and out of that system every single day, and it's absolutely essential, especially in a state like Texas, to make sure that we are monitoring and updating the progress, right? Last year, we had a lot of conversations, particularly around Texas, around updating these systems, right? The COVID-19 pandemic told us that the current systems that we lived in this moment in time, right? The way in which voter registration exists in your state isn't necessarily functional for a pandemic, isn't functional for today's Gen Z and millennials who are growing up in today's society, right? We have to update. As America grows, we have to, just like an iPhone, right? You have to do a system update. And so as we're thinking about fighting forward for the future of freedom, what are the system updates that need to happen within even the youth and college division, right? Things in which that we functioned in the past don't necessarily continue to function and serve for the future, right? And so I want us to think about even our own units, our youth councils, our college chapters, our junior youth councils, right? All these different things that we exist and function in within the NAACP Youth and College Division. What are the system updates that are necessary to ensure that we fight for the future of freedom? And so the way that we do that is, one, we need to make sure we evaluate and understand the issues that are most important to our lives. We know as young people that we are issue-based voters, right? That we live not just one issue lives, but multi-issue lives, right? These different issues that affect us on a day-to-day basis, such as police accountability and transparency, such as the burden that student loan debt has on us, such as the idea that, all right, even if student debt is canceled, what does it mean to say that education is a fundamental right for each and every American or individual, and recognizing that college is a gateway for more access and opportunity, and that if we really believe in that, then college actually should be free, right? How do we begin to envision a world where we get the opportunity to determine our own destiny, that everybody has the opportunity to learn real, true, authentic history about themselves, that we are able to have equal access to the ballot, to our voting rights, recognizing that there's so much being put in place in today's day and time that is blocking our access from that opportunity. We have to be the ones that we've been waiting for to make sure we are transforming the system. Just a little bit about my own background, right? As a young organizer coming from California, I worked with an organization called the African Black Coalition. And really in that infant stage of the development of the organization, well, I had the opportunity to craft and dream what the future of the organization looked like. What does it mean for young Black organizers to grow up in an organization, learn the fundamentals of organizing, learn from historic figures who have been part of our organization, who have allowed us to be where we're at today. And one thing that I really hold dear to myself is this principle and this idea of Sankofa. Sankofa is a principle that means to move forward, you must look back, right? You may have heard the adage, you must know your history or you're bound to repeat it, right? Sankofa says we have to learn from, we turn our head backwards, right? Look at our own self, look at our own history, look at our own timelines, right? So we can make sure we can determine where the future goes or where the next nexus point is, right? And when we look at history, right, we look at where we're at today, you know, there's so many parallels, right? We've been through a lot of these things before, right? We've been through a change in government. We've been through a global pandemic, right? And we've gotten through it. But the real question is, you know, understanding history and seeing the parallels that happen over and over and over again, do we want to continue down the same pathway that we've done time after time after time? Or do we want to create new nexus points in which we are able to deviate from the current standard, the current ways of being, right? The current ways that we exist. I want to make sure folks understand that we have an opportunity in this moment in time. You know, this national or this global pandemic changed the rules in which we operated in, right? I remember when this pandemic first happened, I was thinking, all right, you know, I can't wait till life gets back to normal. I can't wait till we are able to operate in the same old, right? And things are coming back to some sense of normalcy, but this is also the opportunity to really redefine what the rules look like. You know, as we're seeing so much legislation being passed, folks are taking the opportunity to redefine what our reality looks like. And so I want to make sure each and every one of you have the opportunity to do that by making sure that you are involved, that you are developing your units, that you are being able to get the resources necessary to be as successful as possible, right? We want to make sure that you are ingrained in different issue-based organizing, because that's how we propel and stay within this movement, right? We can't just continue doing the same old and expecting different results. We have to try new things. We have to ensure that our elected officials hear us about the issues that are most important to us. And so I really push you and urge you to think about your local community, your state, and your nation. In the NAACP Youth and College Division nationally, the theme, really for this year and for the movement is how do we instill and build local wins that inform national narratives, right? We can think about nationally all day long. We can say, hey, we need to make sure Biden does this. We need to make sure Congress does that. But the way Biden hears us and the way Congress hears us is by ensuring that we win locally, right? Own your block, own your city, own your state, pick an issue, recognize your impact in that issue, and how can you make change locally in your neighborhood, locally in your city, in your state, and build up to this national level where we're able to share these stories, share these ideas, share these victories to ensure that the people who are making decisions that inform national legislation see what's happening on the local level. You have as much power as anybody nationally to change your circumstances and change your reality. It's just important that in this moment, as we fight forward, that you step into that power and determine what the rules are. And so I'm very excited to continue working in the NAACP as the national director. I want to give you a glimpse in terms of the direction that we're going in and what's absolutely necessary to make that happen. When I think about the future of the NAACP Youth and College Division, it's making sure that we are prepared for direct advocacy, direct action, and moving legislative wins, right? We have done trainings. We've continued to be at state conventions. We've learned different issues. I know in Texas, y'all have worked on student debt. Y'all have worked on police accountability. Y'all have worked on voting rights. Y'all have worked on even direct service work in terms of mutual aid, especially, during the winter storm, right? We have all these different skills and abilities that we've been doing throughout our entire year and even before the pandemic. Now it's time to make sure we put these different pieces of the puzzles together for a collective plan, for a collective win. How do we envision 2022 for Texas, right? We have another midterm election going on. There are thousands and thousands of local elections that are happening all the time. Something we commonly say is don't call it an off year, right? There's always work to do. And just because it's not a midterm election or a presidential election doesn't mean that there's not a way for us to engage. And so what's very important is that day by day, we have to build. Day by day, we have to do voter registration. Day by day, we have to share our stories. Day by day, we have to make sure that we are connecting and building solid relationships, not just with folks on our campuses, folks in our communities, but folks in our organization, right? This is an opportunity to transform the way we engage in a different way. And so I really, really want to implore folks to think about how we are building up to the midterm elections and how are we making sure that our elected officials hear our voices, hear our demands, hear what's absolutely necessary for us to be successful, for us to have a future, right? Fighting forward for the future of freedom means that we are reimagining it. I'm a very big fan of Afrofuturism. I love it very much because it gives us the opportunity to really reimagine what our world can look like, right? What does it really mean for us to be able to determine, the way in which we engage with one another, the way in which we greet one another, and the way in which we see justice in our community, right? We have the power to do that. We have the opportunity to do that, but that starts with you. That starts with you envisioning being bold, being brave, being beautiful, being able to think about the ways in which you can exist and the ways in which your community can exist without barriers to success, without barriers to democracy, without barriers to a brighter future. And so I'm very excited that in the next couple of years, we're going to be doing some really exciting things. We're going to be making sure that we are bringing and training the next generation of new leaders with the NAACP who are going to be leaders both within the organization and outside the organization. Even your president is very active with other organizations doing amazing things. I know everybody here has been doing great stuff. Even just yesterday, we had a very exciting conversation with Desmond Meade and former chief of staff to John Lewis, Michael, with your very own Jeffrey Clemens from Houston Tilton, talking about redistricting, talking about the need to get out to vote, talking about the necessary rights. And what was very amazing about that conversation, I want to commend, I don't know if Jeffrey is actually here today, but the idea of making sure that even at every single moment, we're keeping people accountable. He did an amazing thing on that call yesterday where he really called for accountability from folks in the White House necessary for the redistricting process. And so making sure that we are stepping into those moments and seizing those moments when we had that opportunity. And so thank you, Jeffrey, so much for being there. Thank you for your words of wisdom, because it was absolutely necessary in that moment in time. And so my job as a national director is to make sure that you all have the opportunities to be in those places and spaces where you have the opportunity to directly talk with elected officials, to make sure that you are keeping them accountable, that you're building those relationships, and that you are crafting and creating the future and vision in which you want to live in. And so I'm super excited that you all are here again. I know that there's so much that is in store for today's national convention. I want to make sure that you are keeping in touch with each other, that you are taking care of yourself, because we cannot be good activists if we're not good to ourselves. We cannot be good organizers if we're not good to ourselves, and if we're not really taking the time every single day to make sure we are meeting the immediate needs of our own body, souls, and spirit. And so I urge you to make sure that you're continuing to take care of yourself, that you're being kind to yourself, but that you also are being able to dream as radically as possible, because the future is yet to be created. I know a lot of folks are thinking about it in the moment in time, and are putting certain practices and systems in place, but you have the opportunity to be a part of those things, to be a part of that change, and to continue fighting forward for our future. And so thank you again, Texas NAACP Youth and College Day Conference. I'm super excited for the work that you have ahead of you and the things that you're going to be doing. Y'all have always been a state conference who's done so much for the organization. I remember, just really quickly before I wrap up, when I first started at the NAACP and came to the national convention in San Antonio, Texas was coming out deep. Texas was coming out very deep every single time, winning all the awards. Everyone talking about Texas. We're in the heart of Texas, and Texas is winning all the awards and taking all those things down. And so I'm actually very excited, to see what y'all got, because I know this year we're going to be doing a lot more things, moving forward. Convention will be in person. And so very excited for a convention that will not be virtual, but a convention where we'll actually to engage with each other, learn real tactics and tools, and to show out again. And so, really think about the idea of how are we able to connect, build, and grow as we move towards 2022. And so thank you again for having me, and I will turn the floor over to Siobhan. And if there's any questions, definitely feel free to reach out to me, the Youth and College Division staff. We're here to support you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Director. I couldn't have said it better myself. That's why you're the director. But something you said really stuck with me. It's funny because I feel like you're speaking into our program, because our next session is on self-care. So that is super crazy. So just keep that in mind. It is true. You do have to take care of yourself. And like Wisdom said, our national theme is fighting forward, but we kind of have this state theme that we wanted to make a little bit more personal for you all. And it's about preparing yourself for the movement. So like Wisdom said, you cannot advocate for others if you're not taking care of yourself. So if you're not advocating for yourself in your day-to-day. So to wrap up this plenary, we want to kind of give you some final announcements, but we have this kind of made up kind of movement roles that we've been talking about. These are not comprehensive. So these are not everything. These are just kind of some ones that we've been thinking about on the state executive committee. So I'm just going to explain them really quickly. You want to take a quick poll and see where you see yourself. So we have this kind of advisor role, and I don't mean your unit advisor. I mean like where you actually lend yourself. Are you someone who gives advice, who kind of guides people through it? Are you an innovator, somebody who is more creative, someone who is kind of lending their talents in that way, whether it's, graphic design, or even in a more theatrical way? Are you more of a participant? So somebody who is just kind of along for the ride, which there is nothing wrong with that if that is your capacity. And then are you a team supporter? So you might be not in a huge leadership role, but you are ready to support in any way you can. A bullhorn holder, probably a little bit of some imagery, but that's somebody who is really a little bit more relational. Those are people who are like not afraid to be in front of people. They love connecting with other people. Or an administrator, so somebody who's more behind the scenes, works on those logistics. So we're gonna launch a quick little poll. We just want to see where y'all are at, get a gauge. Tell us what you think. I believe you are able to click multiple. So if you feel like you're a couple different things, no worries, keep on doing that. So as you feel that out, I'm just gonna go into our last announcements so that we can go into our next session, because I don't want to make y'all late. So if you have any questions today, please be sure to email texasnaacpyc@gmail. You can also be sure to chat with any of our panelists or co-host in any of the sessions. So our email will get dropped in the chat. We also have a convention lounge. So if you want to take a breather, you can go ahead and pop into that session. And it'll just be a space for you to just hang out, meet other people maybe. But highly encourage you to go to the session. I mean, if you don't need a break, don't take it. If you have not purchased a convention box, they're $20. You can find them on the state website. A link for that will get dropped too. You're gonna get a bunch of links in the chat right now, just as a heads up. And then if you ordered one and you haven't received your box yet, I promise you it's on the way. I don't know if y'all saw, but USPS has a shipping delay and they increased their prices too. So if you got some holiday things coming on, make sure you ship those early. And then last but not least, our next session will start in 3 minutes. So make sure you click that link that will be put in the chat. It will be with Dr. Ashley Wade, and it is entitled Build Your Day and Knowing Your Limits. So she is probably gonna drag me about making sure I take care of myself. Let's see if she's gonna drag you too. And so lastly, we have the rest of the convention schedule. So just so that you are aware, after that, we'll go into our athleticism and activism panel. If you missed our speaker announcement, we actually have some real live Olympic athletes who will be joining us today. That's super cool. And then we have a state representative, Jasmine Crockett, that will be talking about leadership and her leadership through the legislative session. We'll be talking about our call to action to free Marvin Gaye. And then we'll talk about power mapping and how to apply that to issue areas in your community, and rounding out with focusing on community solutioning with some founders of some really awesome organizations. And then we'll give you some next steps to close it out. So I know that was kind of fast. You will get that information again. Also, if you are a delegate, you will be receiving a ballot in about 27 minutes. If you have any questions about any of the candidates, be sure to message anybody who is a panelist or a co-host. So that's a member of our executive committee. Now, like I said, I know that was kind of fast. I promise you'll get all that info in every session. But we are going to conclude our plenary. That is the end of this part of our agenda for this session. So we are going to end this webinar immediately. So please hop on to the next session. We hope to see you soon. Actually, we will see you soon because I know all of you are going to come join us. And thank you all for coming to our first session. We'll see you in just a bit.